meetings. I will be covering a lot of information tonight. I realize some of you might be new, while others may have been at this job for many years. My intention is not to use the fire hose technique and blast you. My hope is everyone will walk away with at least a nugget or two of information or have some aha moment. Remember, you can always refer back to this PowerPoint presentation, the handouts, and the CAPTA website. Don't feel like you have to write everything down. This meeting is being recorded. And after all, this really, I said meeting, it's really a training, and you're not going to be asked to type up any minutes. So your key role as secretary is to take minutes at the meetings. Along with the president, you will co-sign payment authorizations, resolutions, and formal letters. You maintain and preserve the PTA records and other important documents. By the end of tonight, hopefully you should be able to identify the roles and responsibilities of the PTA secretary, know what belongs in the minutes, and understand the importance of minutes and record retention. And just for your information, your minutes are kept forever. Okay, I hope you'll look like this and not like this. This actually is me. That's my desk. Are you a recording secretary, a corresponding secretary, or both? Recording secretaries are the ones who take the minutes and maintain the historical records of the organization. Corresponding secretaries are usually the ones who send out meeting notices, read the mail, write authorized letters, file letters, and any other mail that's received. Some PTAs have two positions, while others combine the two into one position. Please check your bylaws. And in this training, we're going to mainly be dealing with the job of the recording secretary. The basic responsibilities of the recording secretary can be broken down into 3 steps: preparing for the meetings, what happens during the meeting, and after the meeting. Most PTAs send the executive board meeting notices via email. Usually both the meeting notice and the agenda are sent ahead of time. Be sure the date, time, place, and meeting, place a meeting along with the agenda items that are going to be discussed are included. For a regular meeting, the notice needs to be sent out at least 10 days before the meeting. However, for elections or bylaw amendment meetings, you must give 30 days advance notice. The list of nominations for election must be included in the notice. And again, this information is in your bylaws. Here is a sample of a meeting agenda. There are other samples posted on the CAPTA website, and 33rd District will be offering mini workshops covering the agenda. Okay. Here are the items you should bring with you to a meeting. And the bylaws and standing rules provide a roadmap for conducting business. I write down the number needed to make a quorum on the inside of my spiral notebook. The parliamentarian can help verify if you have a quorum or not, but someone always seems to ask the recording secretary. So save yourself some time by having that number accessible. Membership list will be needed at association meetings. Only members can vote, and you will use the membership list to verify if someone is a member or not. Okay. Yeah. Here's one example of a motion form. We will post on our 33rd District website an interactive motion form that we're currently using. I also have when we meet in person, I have a form that's done in triplicate. But since we're meeting virtually, I have an interactive form. Okay. Attendance and a quorum being met or not met must be included in your minutes. If your meeting does not have a quorum, no motions can be made, and the business at hand will need to be included at a future meeting for voting. As the secretary, you are the keeper of the permanent, legal, and official documents of your organization. What goes in the minutes is vital to running your PTA. If there are no minutes, then there's no proof of which topics were discussed and what decisions were made. In addition to the treasurer giving a treasurer's report, you must record the opening balance, the total deposits, the total disbursements, and the closing balance in the minutes. Any motions regarding checks already paid or ratified and checks to be written or approved would also be included in the minutes along with the written financial report. And just so you know that banks will need a copy of the minutes to change check signers. They need to know which people are authorized by the organization to act in a fiscal manner. And if you are ever audited by the IRS, the minutes are proof that the board and or the association took action. Okay. And I should say that I'm going to go ahead and go through this, and then I will have a lot of time, I hope, to answer any questions. And I'm kind of glossing over the information. I'm hoping that you can read the slide, and I will kind of highlight what part, either highlight or add to the slide. I don't want to just read off the slide for you. I figure you are all intelligent people and you can read the slide on your own. Okay, this slide's going to list the information to include in your minutes. It talks about pro tem officers. Pro tem officers are appointed by the president in the absence of a board member. Generally, it's just the recording secretary or a parliamentarian who would need to have a substitute, or a recording secretary pro tem, or the parliamentarian pro tem. And those people are appointed at the beginning of the meeting. And the president appoints those people at the beginning of the meeting, and it's recorded that the president appointed that person for those people. Okay, whenever a committee or a person gives a report, the report is just referenced to, and then you would include the hard copy of the report in with your minutes. And regarding the motions, motions are written exactly as they are said. If you don't get the exact wording the first time, ask for clarification and read back what you wrote to make sure it's correct. I strongly suggest using motion forms so motions are recorded accurately. You need to have the name of the person making the motion. You need to make a note that the motion was seconded. You do not need the name of the person who seconds the motion, and then you would either write down that the motion was approved or was not approved. Okay. Yeah, not approved. There's no need to write what the count was, like, 15 people voted in favor, 3 people voted against. These are things not to include in your motions, or sorry, not to include in your minutes. Type up the minutes as soon as you've had the meeting, while things are still fresh in your mind. Be sure to collect 2 copies of the materials distributed at the meeting. The minutes are either going to be approved, another word could be adopted, either as printed or as corrected. You wouldn't be making any corrections in red by circling the part that's not correct. In the margin, you would go ahead and write the correction, date and initial. Make sure to sign the official copy of your minutes in pen. I like to use blue ink so you can readily see my signature. And then regarding the binding of the minutes, minutes would be kept in a bound book. If you're going to glue them into a book, like the CAPTA has a bound book, you should use rubber cement or something permanent and not use white glue or glue stick, because you can remove the pages or the pages will eventually fall out. Any other bound book can be used. At the end of the year, minutes may be taken to an office supply store and bound. Your school or school district may be able to do this for you. You are not using like the spiral comb machines that the schools have. You would need to have it heat pressed. Both Office Depot and Staples can do this for you. And it may be that you're going to need to bind your minutes in more than one book. Typically, I think when I was at council, we did our minutes in 2 books because it gets really thick. And if it's too thick, it won't stay together. And the purpose of having the minutes bound is that people cannot insert any information and they can't remove any information. Okay, so regarding correcting the minutes, as I mentioned before, you would circle the part to be corrected in red ink. You would write in the margin what the wording should be, date, put the date, and I also will add my initials to the corrections, so years down the road, people can go back and see that I'm the one who made the corrections. Corrections to the minutes do not need to happen at the meeting right after. Minutes can be corrected at any time, and you would make a note in the current minutes that a correction was made to such and such minutes of such and such month, what the correction was. You would actually type that into your minutes, the current minutes, and then you would go back into your previous minutes and make the corrections in red by circling and initialing and date. Okay.
Oops, too far.
There went my review. Okay, so you're going to work closely with your president and the board. Your minutes are the legal documents. They must be kept as a permanent record. They're going to contain notes on actions, not what was said. They should be placed in an official file and made available as appropriate. If people want to review them, they are able to do that. Your bylaws and standing rules have the specific description for the secretary of your PTA, and you are the recorder, correspondent, record maintainer of your PTA board. Additional resources can be found on the CAPTA website, the National PTA website. Here's my contact information. The best way to get a hold of me would be to use my PTA email, and I've included my phone number. You can call or text me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Okay. Also, we're going to be posting, or I'm going to give to Nan to post additional resources on our website, sample templates, a motion slip, sample minutes. If you'd like to receive this information in an email, please indicate that in the chat with your name and email address. And now, questions.
They're stunned. Stunned silence.
There's one question. They just want a clarification on binding the minutes or putting them into the book from CAPTA. They just want to clarify they can do one or the other.
You can do one or the other. You don't need to do both. What I found is if you put that book that's from CAPTA, what happens is as you glue this stuff in, it gets to be really like a pie shape, a wedgie shaped thing, and it won't close because there'll be so much information in there that the book will not be able to lay flat. So my experience has been that it's easier to take everything and have it bound. And I probably should back up and say you need to, in addition to your minutes, you would need to include the agenda, any reports that were given, all of your financial reports, any committee reports, any flyers, anything that's distributed at your meeting would be included in your minutes. I know that the financial people have their own record book, but because you are the official record keeper for your PTA, you have to include everything. So the book gets to be really, really thick.
Okay, here's another question. Do you turn in the binded minutes at the end of the year, or do you just keep them on file?
No, you take the bound minutes, and hopefully your PTA has a place to safely store them. They should not be stored at your house. They should be hopefully stored like in maybe a file cabinet. Hopefully your PTA has a room on campus. Of course, now that we're not going to be going back to campus, you need to store the minutes at your home until they can be safely moved to school. But all of those minute books from all of the years for as long as your PTA has been in existence should be kept together.
Okay, here's another question. Do you need to include the number of attendees in the minutes, or just note that there is a quorum present?
Okay. I usually, if it's a board meeting, I always, and my template will show that. I usually have the list of the officers. And then what I do is, if people are excused or they're absent, I move their name from the attended list to the absent list. For an association meeting, you would have people sign in and you would bind that sign-in sheet with your minutes. You would include it with your minutes. So yes, there is a record of who attended by name, or you would make a reference C list. In addition, you would put in your minutes that the quorum was either met or not met. And I usually bold that.
Okay, here's another one. Can you share any differences in the way executive meeting notes versus general assembly? I think they mean executive board and association meetings.
Okay, so at the association meeting, your association meeting is specifically geared for approving the budget, paying the bills, I'm thinking of the word, okaying, accepting any contracts. Your board meeting is more focused, but a lot of what you do in your board meeting will also need to be approved by your association. I think the board meetings are more kind of nitty gritty of month to month going ons, and the association covers a longer time period. The minutes look similar.
Okay, another one. What is the recommendation for the sign-in sheet for virtual meetings?
What we're doing is we actually are having a roll call where the names are listed on the agenda. And what happens is for our meetings, Cindy Ellenberg, our president, lists the names of the people who could be in attendance. And I print that out. And as she's calling roll, I check the people off. And then I include that list in with my minutes, not my checkoff list. I actually are typing the names into the minutes. And you would need to do the same thing. Because we're virtual, a voice, you could do it off the screen on Zoom, but that's really kind of hard. So it would be better for your president to do a roll call, verbally call the names and have people say here or not here. Well, they won't say not here, but here.
All right. Another question is, do we include original reports of the committees, or can they be copies?
They can be copies. The original, like an audit would need to be an original report. But like a committee report could be just a copy.
Okay, this is another good one. Can someone record via a personal device board meetings without consent of the room?
No,
No.
no. And if you're going to record, you need to notify everybody that you are recording, and that if even one person objects, you are not able to record.
Do we need to print out a new copy of corrected minutes at the next meeting and have them approved with corrections?
No. Once you print your minutes out, they stand as they are. Any corrections would be made on your copy, the hard copy, the PTA copy. The corrections would be done in red ink, circled. The corrected verbiage would be written in red ink in the margin, dated and initialed, and you could go back in your minutes for the following month and say something like the minutes were approved as corrected. There was a change to the date of the fundraiser was July 15th, and it should have been June 15th. You can type that in so people will know what the correction is, but you cannot go back and you do not go back and reprint your minutes.
Here's a statement, and maybe you can speak to it, that indicated that roll call won't work for a unit association meeting because they are large.
Can I jump in on that, Sumi?
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody was asking, we're in the world of virtual now, and most of us are working probably in Zoom, but I think maybe even Google has a feature you guys might have to play with depending on what like virtual meeting you're using. But like in Zoom, for instance, if you turned on registration and had everyone register, you could then capture like who was in attendance. I would suggest if you're going to try that for like a larger association meeting, just so you could capture who was and verify their membership and all of that good stuff, maybe do it with a smaller board meeting that you're going to have. So you send out the invitation, have everyone register, and then see what the registration report shows you, whether or not they attended or didn't, that kind of thing. I haven't used that much myself, but that might be a lot easier than trying to figure out whether or not 150 people attended.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you from experience, that is nutso. So yeah, you're right. It's a pretty hard thing to do. I will say too, unfortunately, I have been to a few association meetings, and honestly, it's usually the board plus whoever we could beg to come along with us. So I wish we were talking hundreds of people you're trying to count, but unfortunately, I haven't seen that come up yet. That's maybe one suggestion, one way of looking at it.
Right. I haven't dealt with large association meetings either. And typically in person, I would have people sign in, but you know what your quorum is, and you can kind of get a sense of, like Nan said, who's a board member. You know that board members have to be PTA members, and you kind of get a sense of, do you have a quorum or don't you have a quorum?
I have a question. My name is Sophia. Is there a document that provides some tips in the world of virtual meetings? For example, you mentioned the motion cards, which I think are great. But like, how would you do that in a virtual meeting? And then the other suggestion that you just mentioned about registering, that's great. That's wonderful. I guess somebody knows how to do it in my area, but because we're going to be meeting virtually for the time being, probably through December. But I was just curious if there's like an infographic or a template of some tips.
There isn't, and part of it is we've all had to pivot so quickly that things have not been put together. If you have specific questions, I mean, I could try to craft something together. The motion slips, what we're doing is people are filling them out ahead of time and submitting them to me before our meeting. If the motion happens during the meeting, then what happens is they are putting in the chat what their motion is. And at the end of the meeting, I don't know how to do it, but Nan and other people on the board with me, they are awesome at capturing the chat. Hopefully that will help. If nothing else, you can have the person email you the exact wording after the meeting and try to get as close as you can to what they said during the meeting. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, here's the next question. Who should receive the minutes and do the minutes get sent out?
Who should receive them? The minutes go to the group of people who had the meeting. So your board minutes would go to your board. Your association minutes, typically, you know, we would post a few copies in the room. I'm not quite sure how we're gonna do that virtually. What I can tell you is you never post your minutes on a website. You can post a summary of what happened at your meeting, but you never post things like that on the website. Minutes are, it's private. I don't want to say it's classified information, but it's certainly not public. If people want to review your minutes, they have the right to do that, but you would, well, I don't know how you would do it in these days, but you would have them not take the minutes with them, but review them with you present. And typically, I don't think people usually ask to see the minutes.
When will this recording be available?
I don't know.
I believe it'll be the next couple of
I think
days.
the next couple of days.
Actually, I think we might have to verify with Cindy. I think we might have had trouble, I don't know if Cindy can speak to this, had trouble initiating the recording.
Oh.
It's recording.
It's
Okay.
recording.
Yeah.
So in that case, tomorrow.
All right. Where do you buy the official binder to keep everything? So I'm
The one that you can buy it through the Capta store. You mean the bound book?
Probably the ledger, yeah.
The ledger? My advice is to go ahead and just take when things let up, go ahead and just take your minutes and all of the reports and all of your things to Office Depot or Staples and have them press bound. Because to paste in all of the papers into the PTA, Capta PTA bound book, it's going to get really, really thick. And I know one of my first years as a recording secretary, I actually glued those papers one by one into The other thing is I should have mentioned is you can't have like a report stapled and then you glue in the bottom page. Every piece of paper has to be glued onto a separate page. And what I found out was the book gets really, really thick. It won't close. And because I was using rubber cement, I got really sick. Well, the fumes of the rubber cement made me nauseous.
Well, you shouldn't have been snorting them, Sumi.
I know. It was like, oh my gosh, this was a huge mistake. So I would take it and have it bound. And then I know when I mentioned about copies of reports, so your nominating committee report would need to be an original copy. Your audit would need to be an original copy. Trying to think. Michelle, can you think of any other copies that would be submitted that would need to be original?
No, I can't.
I know audit and recording and nominating for sure.
Right.
And I didn't even talk about the audit report, but there in one of the handouts, it tells you the exact what the auditor is going to say and what you need to record. And it's verbiage that goes something like, I have examined the books of the such and such PTA from the period of January 1 to June 30th and find the records of the treasurer to be, it's either like correct, substantially correct, correct with these it says like correct with these corrections. I'm sorry, I'm saying correct a lot. But there's on the audit form, there's an actual spot where the auditor checks off, and those words need to be copied. They need to be included in your minutes. And when you look at the audit form, you'll see it's kind of toward the bottom where the auditor signs.
All right. This is a good question. What difference is the voice recording we did during regular meetings versus now, versus today's?
You mean like a roll call?
I'm not sure. The maker of the question, Belia,
Oh,
if you want to.
Hi. Yes. Well, because you said we can't record with if someone objects to it, but we used to voice record them before.
you were always supposed to get permission.
We would always say, okay, you know, this meeting is being recorded. We never asked if anyone objected, but we would say, just to let you know, the meeting is being recorded, voice recorded.
I think as long as no one objects, right? So you could still, I mean, if that's been kind of the matter, of course, you guys have been used to and nobody has any issues. There's probably no issue with doing it this way too.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, because I know our principal said we couldn't video record, but we would always voice record, I guess just for Zoom now, but okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
I personally have never been on a PTA where we voice recorded. For me, I have it was difficult for me to transcribe from a tape, and I did much better in person, writing it down longhand. I know some recording secretaries are able to take the minutes right at the meeting. They load in the agenda and then they just type onto their computer, their laptop, their tablet, whatever, right at the meeting. I personally can't do it that way. If that works for you, go for it.
Here's another question about large associations for roll call of everyone possible, like at a high school, would take a lot of time. Can we just ask people to state their names while on the call?
I kind of am with Nan to have them pre-register. Or, you know what you could do is you could do even like some of our executive board meetings, they get pretty large. And what I do is I capture the names, or I have somebody capture their names as they enter the Zoom meeting and get a listing that way. You could screenshot the people in the meeting, but we're talking about, we usually, I don't think we've had more than 50 people. So I don't know what it would be like if you had like 100 people. You might be able to address it the same way. But if you can pre-register, I think that's a great way to go. I'm not familiar with the technology, so I can't really speak about that.
Yeah, and in the pre-registering too, really it's just a link. So instead of, right now we're kind of accustomed to maybe, again, talking about Zoom, sending out the Zoom link and saying like, hey, here's the link, the date, the time, all the call-in numbers. Instead, when you're creating your Zoom meeting, there's an option to have them require registration. And then that's the link that they would register. Once they've registered, entered whatever information you wanted, first name, last name, member, not a member, parent, whatever. And then once they've registered, then they get the link, automatically get a link and a reminder, I think, and a reminder email. So then it's almost like the best case scenario, because you're not required to do much more other than just they're there. And then once they've logged in, I think with like their email that's associated with it, they're pinned, like the record is kind of appended. So now you have more visibility. Like, again, I would recommend trying it with a small meeting, like a committee meeting or a board meeting. And if you like that and think that it works the way you're expecting and needing it to, then for sure you could know you're in a good place with doing it with your association as well.
That sounds good.
Right. So to clarify, would the original nominating committee report be given to the recording secretary to include with the minutes?
Yes. And it should have everybody's signature on the nominating committee, I believe. Yes, everybody on the nominating committee has to sign that report.
This might be a good one for Nanette. Do you know a program that allows more than 100 participants, just in case?
Yeah, so I shared that Google Chat allows up to 150 for free, that I do know. And then the nice thing about Zoom is if you decided you wanted to use it for maybe just a one-time association meeting, again, this might be where having a registration gives you an actual count of how many people are registering and trying to come to your event. And you may not need to up it beyond 100, for the $15. But if you, for whatever reason, we're going to have like 600 people on your crazy call, you could actually pay the one-time fee. I think it's like $50 additional for that month, as a unit or council or whatever, and host that meeting at the larger, I think it's like 300 or 500. I have to go back and look, just for that one time. And then you could, drop back down to whatever your free or, $15 a month is. So those are some kind of options as well.
Thank you. We cannot post minutes, but can we email them?
Okay, so you can email it to, like if it's your board, you can email it to your board. And you need to caution everybody that they shouldn't be forwarding your minutes to other people.
And can I jump in on that too? So I did post in the chat a link for you guys that even if you Googled CAPTA and COVID, it leads you to a couple of CAPTA pages, but one is for PTA leaders, and it does actually give some guidance on that, which I'm with Sumi. I kind of like don't want to let important information out like to the world, but it does say like it is okay to post documents for the meeting. But the question is it okay to post the documents for the meeting on our website or social media? And it says yes, as long as you make sure that they're non-editable documents. I don't think that the social media and website is great, but maybe just making sure you have PDFs that are not going to be tampered with. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I love it either. And let's be honest, I don't think anyone cares about our minutes and the minutia as much as we as PTA leaders and executive board. So I think if a member comes to you and says, hey, I really want to see those minutes, like, okay, have at it, if they're a member, but maybe there's not, I don't know. It's tricky, but it does seem like there is an allowance for sharing your documents. But definitely look at that page like 3 times.
If past minutes prior to me are not bound, should I get them done?
Yes. I'm sorry, yes. Even though it wasn't on your watch, for the sake of your group, you want to have them bound.
Do you have an example of a bound set of minutes right there by you?
I do not, because I'm in the first year of my my term. Anything that I have that would be bound, when I was at council level, it's like in the council closet.
Yeah.
And actually I should say that I had the minutes bound for 33rd district, and what they go to a bookbinder and spend a little money to have it done. It looks like a regular book. It's a beautiful, it ended up being 2 books, but I ended up picking them up, and I was so nervous that I took the minutes, those bound copies of the minutes from the binder company straight to the 33rd district office, because I did not want it at my house. I did not want something to happen.
All right, here's another question. Do bills paid need to be listed in the minutes?
Yes. Yes, I quickly kind of went over that. Anything that the bills to be paid that are going to be approved, those would be listed. It would be the name, the person that you're going to pay, why you're paying them, the amount, and then any bills that were ratified, meaning you already paid them. So it gets really confusing because you have, in the minutes, you'll be dealing with bills to be paid, meaning you're going to write the checks that night, or bills that have been ratified, meaning you already wrote the checks. And in both cases, that information is in your minutes. And that's basically for transparency purposes. Even though you have your reports from your treasurer that give you the list, it's like it just makes it even more transparent that this is what we paid, this is why we paid it, or this is what we're going to pay, and this is why we're paying it. So there's no.
Can you include the treasurer's notes or what they provide in the minutes so you don't have to rewrite them?
No, you still have to write it.
Okay.
If it has to deal with paying the bill, like a bill that's paid, a check number, or if it's a check number, you still have to type it up. I know it's a pain, but you're still supposed to type it up in addition to including their report.
So, Sumi, can I just clarify? So for the treasurer's report, it just needs to be the beginning balance.
It's beginning balance, opening balance, any deposits or receipts, any disbursements or checks, the ending balance. In addition to that, you have to have your motions that will, you either are going to move to pay the bills, and then you would have the name of the person, the amount, and why you're paying them, or you'll have a motion to ratify the bill, ratify the checks, meaning you already paid those, you already wrote those checks. So it's going to be listed a couple of times in different ways. But in either case, you still have to put the person's name or whoever the check was paid to, the amount of the check, and why you had to write the check or why you had to make the payment. Does that answer the question, Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to, because the financial part is always something that is always hard for me because it's not in my wheelhouse, and I always want to make sure that we have it I don't want recording secretaries to think that they have to recreate that exact report in the minutes, because that
No.
report's there. You just need the, you know, so in the treasurer's report section, it's just the beginning balance, disbursements, and ending balance, and then bills to be paid is the next section, and that's where those details are written out.
Right. And so there is, it's called a model script for financial reporting or something like that. I can certainly have that get posted. It may already be posted on our website. It is the exact verbiage that is used by like the financial secretary or the treasurer or the auditor. And that actually is going to be a mini workshop. We had originally the recording secretary training was a document that covered like 25 pages of information. And I made the decision this year to kind of break it out and to cover some of it now. And down the road, I'll be covering like how to make a motion and specific parts that relate to recording the minutes. But I just thought it was just too overwhelming to have 25 pages of information thrown at people at once.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Kat from Santa Monica. I'm a little confused about some of this financial stuff. So if the treasurer is presenting bills, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
we have typically had the treasurer present just the total amount that needs to be ratified, for example. Are you saying that you want them to list out, you know, Sally Joe needs this much and actually say that for each person, or just that it's written into the record?
If she's already written it that way on her report, you can go ahead and do it that way. You can go ahead that she moved to ratify bills 123 to 124, dated from such and such date to such and such date, for a total of however much money. If that can be done that way, you're right. You can do it, ratify it in a clump. But somewhere there had to be some kind of accounting. And I know for 33rd District, we have the person who does that presentation has broken it out into, these are the bills that are going to be ratified today. And then she makes like a spreadsheet. And then these are the bills that are going to be paid. And there's kind of like it looks like an Excel spreadsheet accounting type thing. And yes, for the ratification, yes, you absolutely can do it in a group. As long as you say what the check numbers are, check number to check number, from this date to this date, for a total of such and such money. The motion can be made that way, yes, definitely. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Here's a question. How much should we budget for binding of minutes?
I want to say when I had it done before, it was maybe $10 a book. I mean, it wasn't crazy expensive, but I don't know because I haven't done it. I haven't had to bind the books in a few years. So with the prices, I'm not really sure. You could, I wouldn't say go down there, run down there and go source it out right now. I would wait until things kind of ease up a little bit. But I'm thinking maybe $15 a book, maybe $30.
Like Erica just posted, make sure that you use the National PTA Office Depot discount. That helps with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think this is, because questions are starting to slow down, so I think this might be the last one right now. Are each school year's minutes kept in their own binder, or do you continue to add the minutes to existing binders?
That's a good question. For your own personal record, you can keep combining it. For your unit, for your school PTA's purposes, it should be just 1 year. So your minutes would be for the minutes for the school year 2020, 2021. And last year's
And
would be bound together. It would be 2019 to 2020.
And they would go in month order, right? And everything that
It-
happened
yeah.
at that meeting would need
Yes.
to be with that set of minutes.
Yes, it goes consecutively and it goes by school year. I mean, that's usually how you keep your record, is by school year to school year, not calendar year to calendar year. And you're right, Michelle, you would start in September. Well, depending on when your school year started, it actually starts July 1st. So it would be July, August, September, October, all the way through to June.
Well, it looks like we are to the end of the questions. They were really good questions. Thank you, everyone.
They were.
So, Sumi, do you have everything? Anything
I do. My last slide was thank you for attending.
Oh, oops, my bad. Hold on.
That's
There you
okay.
go. I thought it would be helpful to leave your email up there in case
Yeah,
people want to
that's
send
a
you,
good
junk
point.
mail.
We had one more question that came in. Do you bind the agendas with the minutes?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I'm trying to figure out a good way. When I was the recording secretary at the school and also council, I would do the agenda and then the minutes that went with that agenda and all of the reports that went with the agenda. I'm not sure that's how it was done for 33rd District, but I'm thinking it makes more sense. Even though you approve your minutes, and technically you don't approve them, you either say they're good or you correct them. And you file them for audit, although I've been told you don't have to say file for audit. Your minutes are always going to get approved the following month. So if you write your minutes in September, those minutes won't be approved until October. But I still think it would make more sense to put the minutes with the agenda with all of the reports together in one section.
Can I add one thing that I've noticed on taking off my 33rd District hat, putting on my council hat? As a recording secretary too, I don't know if every council collects minutes, but I know like at Torrance Council we do. So it might be smart too for you to just put it in your calendar when your council meetings will be, like when those documents are ready. And just to help, I mean, everybody on the board is kind of responsible, even though we each have different hats that we wear. We should all be mindful of what gets turned in to council on a monthly or, a periodic basis. And so if you can have your minutes ready to go and be, zapped up over, digitally to whoever, I think it does help your president a lot. And what's nice is you never get a bottleneck because every month you've got a nice steady stream. And what's really cool too is if you're unsure about your own minutes, maybe it's your first time, and I don't know, again, if all councils give mentors, but hopefully the recording secretary at council could give you pointers or tell you whether or not you were off base or needed, they could clean up your act basically. So I'd say the sooner you can get in a good habit of turning them in and asking for feedback early and often will make sure that you have a really great foundation. And then what's beautiful about that is when you're ready to hand off your job to the next person, you've given them like your templates, your minutes, as there should be, because sometimes we don't inherit stuff the way that it ought to be. And I think that can be really a challenge. So just my plug for that.
And I'm not sure if district has done it before. I tried kind of late in the year, but I'm going to go ahead and ask all of the council secretaries to send me a sample of their minutes, just their board and an association. just to kind of make sure that people are on the same path. The things that are mostly missed are the financial information is not always recorded in the minutes, and then the audit information is not always recorded in the minutes. So if people are asking you to turn in your documents, it's not because we're like the recording secretary police. We just want to make sure that you're including the correct verbiage so that you don't get into trouble down the road. So
That's
any more questions?
I don't see any.
Okay, very cool.
Bye,
Okay,
Fred.
so if people have questions, they certainly can email me. And I think, Nan, can you capture the chats?
Oh yeah.
And then all the people who ask, and it may be that even if you didn't ask for certain things, it may be just easier for me to take my registration list, and I'll apologize in advance. I'm going to send whatever, and if you didn't want it, or you don't want to see it, or you don't know why you're getting it, just hit delete. And that way everybody can have it, and I don't have to look through and go, did this person want this? Did this person want this? If I just send it to everybody, and I probably should have just said that to people, that I will go ahead and send you an email with a bunch of handouts. And feel free to use them or not use them. I will not be offended in the least. And if there's anything I can do, you've got my contact information. So, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe. Have a good beginning of the school year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I have to
Sorry about that, Cindy. I didn't realize once I started my